So welcome to our webinar tonight. The purpose of this webinar is to give the participants overview of what to expect for the advanced training. Now, the advanced training, this is an important decision mainly because number one, CMA offers this training once per year. So for those who are planning to move forward to apply for your PCC credential, this is an important piece of information that you do not want to miss. So what I'm going to go through tonight is to walk you through how this advanced training will benefit you, and then I will give you a brief on the program structure. Okay. Now, how this advanced training can benefit you. I'm sure that all of you who are here today, you have already calculated and you have already had something in mind. That is to advance your professional development. And certainly one of the tangible benefits that you are thinking about is to apply for the PCC credential. Now, I would like to share with you, what makes it so important for you as a professional to consider applying for your PCC credential? Now, to understand this, let's take a look at the statistics. So this is the statistics that I've taken from ICF. And on the left-hand side, you can see a graph. And in this graph, you can see that there is a sharp increase since starting from 2012, an increased number of coaches applying for their credential, particularly in 2015 to 2016, there is a sharp increase in 19% of coaches applying for their credential. Now, if we were to break down that 19%, on the right-hand side, you can see the various level of the statistics of ACC, PCC, and MCC coaches as of 2016. Now, you can take a look at ACC credential coach. There is an increase of application at 18%. However, at the PCC level, we witness a significant increase in 23% of coaches moving on to their PCC credential. With that in mind, what are something that we can conclude? That is number one, as the professional industry is moving forward, gone are the days where people are just contented with the ACC credential coach. I happened to have a conversation with one of our graduates, and he's holding a very high position before he decided to do a career switch. And I told this person that, hey, if you're going to add any credential besides your wonderful name and your wonderful existing credential, don't put the ACC there, because it doesn't really reflect what you're capable of. So as the industry becomes more and more matured, certainly having a higher level of credential certainly add value to how you're going to position yourself and how your clients are going to see you. And interestingly, today I happen to receive a private email requesting us to offer them they are calling for a tender for a panel of coaches. And in that tender, they clearly specified we want only PCC credential and above. Okay, so with that in mind, you begin to see the gravity, the weight that people is attaching to a credential. So that is one good reason why, if you are taking your professional route seriously, you should be considering PCC credential. How this advanced training is going to support you to apply for your PCC credential is that this advanced training is going to give you ACTP accreditations. In other words, you can apply your PCC credential via the PCC ACTP track. Now, what's the difference between ICF PCC ACT. What's the big deal here in uh, applying a credential via the PCC ACTP track? Now, it is important for you to take a look at how ICF credentialing application goes works for PCC credential. It is very different from the ACC credential, which is pretty quite straightforward. You know, go for your coach training program, complete your mental coaching, get your 100 hours, and then off you go. There is no complication around that piece. However, when it comes to your PCC credential, there are two separate pathways that is designed for coaches from very different background. Not necessarily background, but from different training needs. They are commonly known as the PCC ACTP path, which we often call that the direct path, or the indirect path, which is the PCC ACSTH path. Now, as you take a look at the ICF website, you can see a glaring difference between the two pathways. Let me talk about the PCC ACSTH path and the rationale behind why ICF created this track. For PCC ACSTH, commonly, it's catered for coaches who have enrolled in a coach training program where they have no options to upgrade their certificate to the second level or to an ACTP track. Okay, so the training provider has only one level of training, which is at ACSTH. And as such, in order for them to meet the basic requirements of 125 hours of coach training program, they would have to combine two smaller programs. Let's say, for example, one coach training program at 75 hours with another one maybe at 60 hours so that they can meet the qualifying hours of 125. In this particular route, they will have to apply under PCC ACS TH route. In this particular route, coaches has to provide additional requirements. Well, number one, they have to make sure that they have completed the mentor coaching, and often or not, it will be a separate component which they have to purchase outside. They would have to look for their mentor coach and complete their 10 hours of mentor coaching. In addition to that, they are required to submit 2 audio recording with the written transcript and send it to ICF where it will be reviewed, assessed by 2 independent ICF assessors. Now, let me share with you based on my experience working with ICF, how is it like to submit the 2 recording. Each recording will at least take you minimum 1 month to 2 months preparation. And often or not, coaches who opt for this route most probably have, completed their mentor coaching and might be holding an ACC credential. And because they have completed their mentor coaching at their ACC level, moving forward right now for them to apply for their PCC credential, the 2 recording needs to meet the requirements at the PCC level. And unfortunately, because they have already completed their mentor coaching, they might not have any knowledge about the benchmark that the assessor is looking for when they're evaluating the recording for PCC level. And based on our experience, usually out of 10 recordings, 10 cases, 4 cases would have to do a resubmission. Now imagine with me that if each recording takes about 2 to 3 months to prepare, and the lead time for ICF to get back to you is about 2.5 months to 3 months, as you can see here, the estimated time, it will be way into 5 to 6 months before you hear anything from ICF. And if you do not have a good mentor coach that walk you through of the benchmark at PCC level, and if you have to redo that recording, you will take another 2 more months for you to prepare the new recording and wait for another 3 more months to get the reply back. So it will take you almost 1 year if the first attempt is not successful before you get to hear any good news from ICF regarding your second attempt. So as you can hear, this is a rather tedious route for most coaches. So fortunately, CMA offers you an upgrade path where you can walk away with an ACTP certificate. And the big difference is that, number one, the mental coaching is part of the training program. Okay, so you don't need to to look for a separate component. It will be integrated as part of the training period. So you will save you additional time. Okay. Number two, the wonderful news is that you don't need to submit two recording to ICF for formal evaluation. It used to be a policy in the past, but ICF has revamped that and changed it into internal assessment if the academy has been awarded with ACTP accreditations. So in other words, you will be assessed internally, but not by ICF independent assessors. So what's the diff here? While we still hold true to the standard of requirement, we are not compromising on the standard of requirements. The big difference is that ICF independent assessor, because they do not know you, they have no basis to assess how you have progressed from an ACC to a PCC level. Therefore, they could only strictly follow a clear demonstration of the markers. So they are looking for exact precisions. If those precisions are not presented in your inquiry, then very likely they will see that as not presented. Therefore, it's a much more stricter assessment by the by ICF independent assessor. Whereas for the internal assessment, while we still hold true to the same standard, the big difference is that because most of the in fact, all the students are all the coaches who are in the advanced training are our students. We know your competency from the first level training, and at the same time, when you are going for the advanced training, you will be required to submit one recording before the class starts. And then we will benchmark, we will use that recording as your own benchmark. And what we are looking for is how you are progressing. How are you making the switch from an ACC towards a PCC? We recognize the fact that it will take time for you to fully demonstrate the markers, but as long as we begin to see that you are making progress towards demonstrating it at a PCC level, that will be sufficient enough for us to put a tick. So as you can see, the way the assessments are graded will give our coaches a much more higher chances and to move forward to apply for their PCC credential. Okay, and finally, okay, what's the big difference in terms of tangible? In a tangible form, you can take a look at the credential fees for PCC ACSTH path. The ICF members need to contribute $575, whereas for a PCC ACTP route, the credential fees is $300. It's a potential of $275 of saving. Okay, the same for non-members. Both category will save you. I mean, the ACTP route will save you extra $275. That's a lot of saving, considering the fact that you have invested so much for your coach training. Okay, so that is number one, how the advanced training is going to support you for your professional development. It allows you to apply for your PCC application credential through a much more easier route. Okay. Now, for some of you, I know after you have considered the fact that, okay, yes, I do want to have the PCC credential as my ultimate end goal. What else besides having the credential? Certainly, as a professional coach, we want to be able to build your coaching competency. And that's where I want to share with you how the advanced level training is going to build onto what you have acquired at the first level. Now, at the first level training, um, you learn how you acquire the competency to create the space for the conversation where you heighten the client's awareness and then bring them to an objective current reality. And then what happens in the clarity conversation is that we taught you a simple framework, which is the scaling method, to help you to uncover the gap. Now, I guess based on your experience in the first level supervised practical coaching session, you realize that by now the awareness conversation seems to be much easier to manage, okay, in opening up the space. But then when you come to the clarity conversation, you start to realize that things is not as there's someone is just on mute. Would you be able to put yourself on mute? Thank you. Just a minute. Okay, we just want to make sure that everybody is on mute. Thank you. So you realize that the clarity conversation tends to be a little bit challenging, whereby there is something that somehow stands in the way of clients owning up. Okay. Now that is pretty quite normal. Why? Because change does requires effort. And change is definitely not easy. Especially you want to enable people to experience a transformative shift. In first level training, we are assuming that the shift will happen naturally because your client is willing and because there is no additional roadblock that is standing in the way. But you realize in reality, you can't run away from resistance. There will be resistance as you begin to coach people for deeper change. Now, if you recall carefully on level 1 training, we did mention to you that do not touch on the negative charge item, because the moment you expand the awareness around a negative charge item, the space that you created become negatively charged. And the reason why we do that at first level training is because we want to build your competency, especially at this formative age, to allow you to shift your own mindset as a coach, not as a client, but as a coach, to shift your conventional mindset from critical thinking to reflective thinking, and allowing you to be able to create a space whereby you are less of an optioning, breaching and telling, but one that is truly expanding the space. So in order for you to acquire that competency, we sort of like deliberately not want to touch the negative charge item, but look for an easier path for you to look for things that is more positively charged, so that you have the learning platform to acquire the skills. Now that you have completed your level 1 training and you're so comfortable in opening up the space to heighten the awareness, now is the time for you to be more exciting, to be more artful in dealing with real things, because resistance will you will meet clients with resistance at any stage of the conversation. And now that you have the muscle to hold the space, you can then now invite your clients to take a look at the resistance. Now remember, the mind is always trying to protect itself. The protective zone is always there to conserve energy. But resistance is a way for us to look at things that we're refusing to acknowledge. And in order for in order for us to evoke change, we had to challenge clients powerfully to go behind the resistance, to appreciate what is it there that is valuable and important for them, and to allow them to embrace and accept it. So that requires you to have an additional competency. Okay, and that is where level 2 training is designed. Okay, in order to help you to deal with this, to create a deeper conversation, you know, and work deeply with your client, we need to ground you in some form of a science or of a concept so that you know what exactly we are dealing with. So one of the key module is the transformative dynamics, where you understand the power of the creative process. Okay, once you get behind the science, just as how you right now so seamlessly create the awareness conversations, where you find it so easy, to just get people to open up their mind. After you have acquired the same knowledge and understanding about the creative process, you will find it so much easier to invite people to have a look at their resistance and appreciate and embrace what is behind that. Okay, so that is a place whereby we ground you in some specific science based on my years of research as a transitional coach of helping people to move out of their comfort zone and to evoke the change that is organic rather than to provoke the change through some form of techniques and challenge. Okay, so that is the what you will be learning as one of the key module in the in the advanced training. In addition to the in addition to the science level, in addition to acquire the science, I strongly believe that you need to work at your personal mastery. And that is where we want to be able to deepen you in your area of a present, where you acquired what I call the authentic presence, deep listening, and evocative asking. This module, Personal Mastery, will be taught by Molly Gordon at MCC, and it's indeed our honor to have Molly to be part of our faculty staff at this level of training. Molly is one of the pioneers, with more than 20 years of experience. She was there at the very onset of ICF formation, and she continued to grow as ICF progressed forward. The very fact of just listening to Molly speaking, you will be inspired by her. She's not only teach the knowledge, she's embodying the knowledge. Okay, you should see the way she connects to herself and the way she asks, the way of the way she invite clients to explore together with her. Now there's so much to learn from her, and one of the things that I believe at mastery level is to be able to learn from the master. And it's my honor to be able to invite Molly to co-teach together with me at this for this module called personal mastery. Okay, and then the third module that will allow that I find very helpful to build your coaching competency is what we call the competency mastery. This is here that we give you additional tools or what we call conversation framework to help you to extract further meanings from the clients through clean language. We are not going through the full spectrum of clean language, but I have modified the concept of clean language so that it can be easily applied as a handle and use it simultaneously in our awareness and clarity conversation. You'll be given a background view of the clean language and a synthesized version of how you can immediately apply the tool into awareness conversation without going through the therapeutic framework. Okay, and another one that I find very useful, which is going to be a new module which I have modified for this particular intake, is coaching resistance. Okay, it's a combination of the last two module whereby we talk about embracing the shadows, but modify that to make it more adapt to a real life application in terms of people struggling with their decision making process and emotional struggles or things that doesn't click or things that sort of like stuck and then they are not willing to just admit it. You see, how can we how can we create a kind of conversation that we can challenge, but yet in a very inviting manner? Okay, so it will be a coaching framework whereby you will learn a certain specific process framework to engage your clients in the clarity conversation surrounding their resistance. Woo, awful lots of stuff. Let me just quickly bottom line what I mentioned. So I'm talking about how this advanced training can add values to you. Number one is at the professional level, where you can move forward to apply for your PCC credential via an easier and smoother path through the PCC ACTP route. Number two, an opportunity to build your coaching competency at the advanced level. If you have, I'm sure that you all understood the level of training that we have, the standard of training that we honored at the first level. At the first level training, it is benchmarked at the PCC level, at the early stage of a PCC level. And in a similar token, the advanced training, the benchmark is at a solid, mature PCC moving forward to an MCC level. So you can be assured of getting the highest standard of training that offers you an opportunity to work deeply with your client. Okay, so that's so much more. That's so much I would say about the benefit. Right now, I'm going to move on to the major part of the discussion, that is to walk you through how the program is being structured. The program is structured with 5 different components, each of them engaging in a very different learning style. Okay, the first one is the pre-course work. Unlike the level 1 training, where we are a little bit lenient regarding your pre-course work, but for the advanced training, there are 2 compulsory requirements that you need to complete before the advanced training starts in December. That is, number 1, to complete a reading of one chapter of a book called Mastery. Now, trust me, the last 2 batch of students who have completed the training, they love reading that book. In fact, all of them actually purchased the book for Amazon after they read through the one chapter of the as part of their pre-course reading. It is a book that talks about what does it really mean for you to be at the mastery level, and what is mastery is all about. So you need to read one chapter of that, which will be part of the PDF file that is given to you, and complete your reading and then your reflection paper. The second one is for you to submit one recording, and we're going to use that as a benchmark before and after the training. Okay, so these are the 2 things that you need to complete before the training starts. The virtual classroom learning comprises of the 3 components: transformative change, personal mastery, and competency mastery, which I have just briefed you. So there are altogether 12 learning sessions, and each of them are 2 hours each. And later on, I will walk you through the program schedule for these 12 learning sessions. Moving on, next is what we call the practical lab. The practical lab is what do we do at the practical lab? The primary objective of the practical lab is to explore, is to give our students an opportunity to understand how the PCC level of coaching needs to be demonstrated. You will be briefed and taught on the markers, that means the behavior pattern, the behavior trait of what is required to demonstrate the competency. Okay, so altogether 55 different behavior markers for all the 10 competency. Okay, so for each practical lab, you will be listening to a recording of myself or another recording at MCC level. And using that as a base, you will see how the coaches demonstrate the competency in an observable behavior pattern so that you can match the understanding with the markers and know how to demonstrate it. Okay, so here is giving you a sense of what to create in the coaching conversation at PCC level. They are altogether 8 sessions, and each session is about 2 hours. After we have completed the practical lab, we're going to move on to the so sorry, it's not after. The fourth component is the peer-to-peer coaching. The peer-to-peer coaching is more of a support group. Okay, remember, it is a support group. What we want to do is to be able to create a platform where coaches have an outlet to demonstrate their understanding. Okay, because so far in the virtual class and the practical lab, it's more of you gaining the understanding. So now we want you to be able to demonstrate it so that you know what you actually understood. So this is a support group where we will divide the coaches into different groups, working with different coaches from different countries. And then in those sessions, there are 2 options that you can proceed forward, where you can continue to allow each other to support each other in their learning. One of the options is for you to review recordings. I will be providing 3 or 4. I have not really decided yet, but I'm going to provide you with some sample coaching conversation at the MCC level. Okay, so you can use those recordings as part of your support group discussion to take a look at how the coach demonstrate those competency. Okay, or you could actually have someone to coach another person and use that as a fresh case study to see how the competency are being demonstrated. Okay, so or you can use a combination of both. I mean, it is up to you and your group to decide to add more varieties to your learning. Okay, remember, this is a support group, okay, whereby you come together to receive feedback and to learn from one another. What our students find is that most of our students find the peer-to-peer support group to be very useful because at the virtual level, at the virtual classroom learning, and at the practical lab, sometimes the way we explained was a little bit much higher. So they sort of like once they understand but not fully able to grasp the concept. So when they come to the peer-to-peer coaching session, they have this platform whereby they can explain to one another what they actually understood. And in that attempt, they sort of like find their own language or their own way to explain the thing at the level where they can understand. Okay, so that's why the peer-to-peer coaching session, even though it's a support group, but does offer you invaluable learning experience where you find your own way to describe what you have learned. Okay, and one of the things is that they form a very strong relationship with one another. Okay, so that's the 4th component, that is the peer-to-peer coaching session. And finally, we come to the last piece, is the coaching coaching supervision. Um, it is something similar, but it is something similar to the first level supervised practical coaching session, except that the format is a little bit different. Number one, we are using a tangible, we are using a kind of like a tangible I mean, you have a benchmark whereby we're going to use those benchmark to evaluate the recording. It's not about how I feel or what my intuition says. We are just looking at the benchmark and use that to see how that recording can be strengthened. Number 2, the client will be someone who have not completed a coach training before. Okay, and number 3, the way we get feedback from the coaches is a little bit different. Okay, it's totally different. Sorry, it's not a little bit. It's totally different. Okay, so similar in terms of the platform, but different in terms of the format. So altogether, you need to attend 12 sessions. But in the supervised supervision, you will have more than 12 sessions. You have maybe about 25 slots, depending on the numbers of participants enrolled from the program. You have 25 available slots whereby you can pick to attend any of those sessions to make up minimum 12 sessions. Again, each coaches are given at least one opportunity to coach. We are thinking and maybe we are modifying it to at least 2 attempts. So we have not yet confirmed this. Wait until we have the exact numbers of coaches coming for the program. We therefore able to advise, whether it would be 1 attempt or 2 attempts. With that in mind, I'm going to move on to the last piece of our today briefing, that is to take a look at the program schedule. The most heavy slot of the time, or the most intense period of the time, is the virtual classroom learning. Okay, the virtual classroom learning will starts from December and will end in January. There are altogether 3 blocks of learning week, where there are 4 consecutive evening. Okay, based on our experience from the last batch, the last 2 batch, students prefer consecutive rather than spacing them out once per week. Okay, so for example, in December, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the starting week. Then once we finish that, you are free to enjoy your Christmas and your New Year, and we will regroup ourselves again on the first week of January and the last week of January. So we'll be making 2 blocks, 2 blocks of 4 consecutive evening to complete the entire virtual classroom learning. And then after that, we'll move on to the practical lab, where it will span from February to March to cover the 8 sessions. That will give us a little bit of breathing space, because February, most of the people in Asia will be celebrating their Chinese New Year in the month of February. Okay, so we have taken that into consideration, and the schedule is reasonable. At the same period of time in February, or maybe starting in January, we're not sure, we will start to form the peer-to-peer groups, whereby you can start meeting up with one another, get to know each other, and it will continue from February till April. Okay, and finally, the supervised coaching supervision will start in May, moving on to July. Okay, we are pretty quite flexible with the schedule. Like last year, we actually extended 2-3 weeks, mainly because the students wanted more time, more breathing space for them in between the sessions. So it is fine with us. It's fine with me if that is a need when we come when we arrive at that point for discussion. Okay, so this gives you a pretty quite overview of the schedule. About 20% will change as we move forward, but basically, it's quite firm and solid to date, so that it gives you in advance notice to manage your timetable, to make sure that you have adequate time for the training. Now, there is one option, and that option is to run the training at 8 p.m. New Zealand time. There will be a certain slot where it will be done at, where it will be offered at 2 different slots. That means you can either choose any one of those to attend. However, the 8 p.m. New Zealand time, which is basically 4 p.m. Singapore time, will be only made available if we have a confirmation of 12 people from Australia and New Zealand joining us, or a group of people from Australia and New Zealand, 12 of them, a minimum 12 participants from this region to join us for this program. If not, otherwise, the training will start at 8:30 p.m. Singapore time, giving enough space for our friends in Indonesia and Thailand to reach back home at 7:30. But if we really felt a need, we might change it to 9 p.m. so that we give them a little bit more time to settle down before the training starts. Okay, that ends my briefing for what to expect for the advanced training. I'm going to pause here and open up the time for question and answer.